Hi guys, MrRoflWaffles here. Free-to-play games have exploded in popularity in the last couple of years, with games like League of Legends and Fortnite dominating the video game market. In 2018, free-to-play games claimed 80% of total digital game revenue for the year, which is nuts because that's $88 billion worth of game revenue. And part of the reason for that meteoric rise to success is a corresponding increase in the level of quality that free-to-play games are able to provide. Today, I've teamed up with My.Games to give you guys a mini overview of their huge free-to-play game called Warface. Warface was, and still is, developed for PS4, Xbox One, and PC. I would describe the game as a dynamic online FPS because it's regularly updated for free with new content and new modes to keep people engaged in basically new stuff at all times. One of those free updates is actually the PvE Mars Specops mission, which I'm showing in the gameplay on the screen right now. In it, you're playing on Mars, so you have to adapt to the Martian environment a little bit, there's low gravity, things like that, and you also get a new chance to play as a SED 2.0, which is essentially a humanoid robot which normally would be the enemy of the Warface soldiers, so there's a pretty cool little switcheroo there. The game also has PvP, if that's more your cup of tea. There's actually 11 different modes total, so there should be something for everyone. If you want to try the game out for yourself, you can use the link that I've got in the description down below to download it, and My.Games, who have sponsored this video, have also provided a limited time promo code for you to use once you've made a character in the game, which will give you a bunch of really cool weapons to use for free. The code won't last forever though, so download the game now if you want to make use of it and get your free weapons. I'd also quickly like to say thank you to My.Games for actually supporting my channel. It means the world to me, and there's actually a little funny story behind why I think it's so cool to be working with this company. So when I was around maybe 10, 11, or probably 11 or 12 years old, I didn't have that much money to spend on games, or even really on a console, but I really wanted to be able to play the games that all my friends were playing or starting to play at school. The solution we came up with as a little kind of friend group was to play all the free games that we possibly could. So I would go to school all day, and then I would come home, and my parents would let me play games for 1 hour total. That was all I got before I had to go and do something else. Now, free-to-play games back then were pretty scuffed. They would basically be one mode in a kind of little arena, and you would play it over and over again with maybe a couple of maps if you were lucky, and if you got bored of that, well, that was kind of it. You were kind of screwed. The actual process of getting in a game with your friend was also a little bit difficult back then as well. Like, networking was just more of a pain in the butt, and so my 1 hour of game time on my plug-in dial-up internet would basically get eaten into and become like 30 minutes of game time or even less. It was pretty rough. Now, if I could teleport back in time and give 11-year-old me a download for Warface, I think I would have been a pretty happy boy, I'm not gonna lie. The game really feels like it should be something that you pay money for, as the whole thing is put together pretty seamlessly, and there's also enough variety in the game so that if you do get bored playing against other players, for example, you can just jump into the PvE, take some time off, and still feel satisfied. And you're gonna be ranking up while you do that as well and unlocking new stuff. Without free games like this, I don't think I would have even started a YouTube channel in the first place, because it's these sorts of games that actually got me into shooters. So it's awesome to see how far the genre has come and how much further free-to-play games have evolved over the years, and this has all happened thanks to My.Games getting in touch, so thank you guys. Let's talk about the various features of Warface, and that should hopefully give you guys a better idea of if it's something that you might want to try. The gunplay in the game feels, I would say, pretty good overall. Guns are satisfying to shoot, and enemies ragdoll when you shoot them as well, especially in low gravity, which is always super fun to mess around with. I love ragdolls in games. There's something really satisfying about using some of the assault rifles in the game. Like, it feels like a Modern Warfare 2 ACR, like beaming people down at points, which, I mean, that's one of my favorite guns of all time, so it's a thumbs up in my book. Your guns can also be customized mid-mission to add things like red dot sights, silencers, stuff like that, and you also get to use an Arcus weapon on Mars, which is the weapon of the SEDs. Previously, you wouldn't have been able to use it because humans can't use Arcus weapons, only SEDs can. The Arcus is basically like an energy gun that can fire infinitely, but if you fire too many shots at the same time, it's going to overheat and you'll need it to cool down. And that has a fire mode switch as well, so you can toggle between being a sniper rifle and an assault rifle, for example. And so that being one type of weapon, and then the customizable attachments being on other types of weapons, allow for some fairly flexible playstyles, which is nice to see, and means that you don't have to play the whole mission playing the same way the entire time. Speaking of playstyles, Warface is technically a class-based shooter. The 4 classes are Rifleman, Sniper, Medic, and Engineer, and you can toggle between them in the game's menu, and those classes are each unlocked as you play through more of the game and you rank up a little bit. Each class has its own special equipment which you can use, so in my case, as you'll see throughout the gameplay no doubt, I'm able to pull out an ammo crate and resupply either my ammo or the ammo of my team around me. This started to come in super clutch in this part of the mission where we were no longer on Mars anymore, we'd actually returned to Earth, and we had to fight through some trickier areas. Now, to be clear, it's part of the same mission, but it's just the kind of middle act, I guess. There were some trickier areas, there were some really tight spaces and things like that, and a lot of enemies, and having constant ammo boxes available made our lives a lot easier than it otherwise would have been. And it was also nice having a medic on the team to get people back on their feet, heal up and stuff like that if they did end up going down. The fact that things like ammo and health and stuff like that are mainly tied to particular classes means the game naturally takes on a bit more of a cooperative feel as well. When things are going well in these sorts of games, it's kind of easy to sit back, maybe backseat a little bit and just ignore whoever else is actually in your game, just let Jesus take the wheel. But when Warface cranks up the difficulty in some of those tighter encounters that I just mentioned, and it does that to test your group's skill, you really do need teamwork to actually cleanly get through. There are also some extra mechanics like boosting teammates up and over walls, or receiving a boost yourself, which act as, I guess, encouragement for you to try and work as a unit with your teammates, which is nice to see too. Now, Warface has a lot of weapons, hundreds of them actually, which are based on real existing guns. This arsenal isn't all available right from when you first create your character, but instead unlocked through playing to earn in-game currency and things like that, or purchasing add-on content for the game like the Armageddon Battle Pass, which has just been released alongside the Mars mission that you're watching right now, available on PC. This is one of the ways that the game monetizes. Rather than making you pay that $60 up front, you're basically given the option, it's your choice, to spend more money here depending on your preference. It would also be silly of me to go through this whole video without talking about the graphics in the game and the performance. All the gameplay in this video was recorded at max settings, or as close to max as I could figure out how to toggle them onto, and it still ran really smoothly. I'm pretty sure I was playing at 120 Hz too, with no performance problems that I really noticed. The game's running on CryEngine, and it feels really nice and responsive no matter what gun I was using or what environment I was in, and I didn't notice any discernible frame drops or stutter or things like that while I was playing. Graphically, I thought the game looked great for a free title for sure, and while I think you can tell that the game's visual style was originally conceived several years ago, it isn't an issue for me personally, and I actually really like the way some of the guns look, especially when they have the sights on them. Like, there's something about the blocky red dot sights on top of the guns that I just think looks really cool personally. It also helps contribute to that kind of ACR laser gun feeling that I was mentioning earlier on too. Something I think's really cool about Warface is the way the devs are committed to updating the game for free. A lot of the time in other games, you see multiplayer maps released for a fee or as part of a paid season pass, but the maps themselves are just new maps. They don't necessarily transform the basic gameplay loop too much, and that's basically that. But in Warface, and specifically in this Specops Mars update, there are various additions that actually change the way the game feels when you're playing on the Martian surface. So, to start with, you're on the Martian surface, and so you're in a low gravity environment. Gravity there is going to be lower than on Earth. I believe this is actually also the first time that Warface has gone kind of extraterrestrial in this way, so It's cool that they're really trying to kind of push their own boundaries with this as well. You also on Mars get that Arcus energy weapon that I mentioned before, and there are new enemies on Mars as well. I think overall the biggest thing I was impressed by in the Mars Specops mission was the boss fight towards the end. It's a fairly long mission, like it feels like a Destiny strike, which is a really good length for free content once again. And so you initially fight on Mars, you then switch over to that section on Earth that I mentioned, and then you return to Mars to investigate the possible use of a nuclear bomb on the planet to try and help terraform it. There's this huge metal spider boss thing. You just enter this arena and it's like, oh yeah, we have to deal with this thing. Oh boy. This honestly came as a surprise to me. I didn't think they would bother putting an encounter like this into the game because I assumed it would be quite a bit of work to implement, but I guess they just did it anyway, which is really good. There's stuff in the fight that I actually kind of wish other games would adopt or think about a little bit more as well. Some of my favorite moments across all games, not just in Warface, but overall in video games in general, are when bosses are far bigger than you as a player, they feel massively powerful, and then you still manage to take them down, right? God of War, for example, does this masterfully. And while this fight was obviously pretty simple mechanically, I really appreciated the scale. I thought that it was great, and I'd love to see that sort of approach replicated in a game like COD Zombies, for example, with boss fights feeling much more grand just due to the scale alone of the big, fat, chubby boss sitting in front of you. There are definitely some areas of the fight that I think could be improved, like the spawning in of the zappy pylon things, but there are lots of positives too, like the splitting of the player's attention between pylon switches, enemies, and the boss itself. It's that sort of stuff where you're trying to juggle and micromanage in a fight, where it gets really difficult, but it becomes infinitely more enjoyable to actually master that situation. There are definitely some Destiny vibes mixed in here too, not gonna lie, and that's a pretty damn good thing to be compared to in my opinion, especially again, for an offering that is free and an update that is free. Okay, so overall, with all those things considered, what's the verdict? I do think that Warface provides a pretty fun experience to anyone who might want to try a game without that barrier to entry, but that is still something that you might get from a $60 title. It also manages to create some pretty cool co-op moments, and it pleasantly surprised me on the whole. I think that that's a good way to put it. The question now is, are you going to give the game a try? If you do decide to give it a go, please remember to use my link in the description. It helps support my channel. It would be awesome if you guys could do that. And also drop a comment in the comment section once you have actually tried it out. I'd be really curious to see what you guys say, especially as I've come at this from a kind of perspective of nostalgic memories of free-to-play games from like 2007 or something ridiculous like that. So my experience and my perception might be a little different to yours, and so I'm curious to hear what you guys have to say. Also, remember, if you do download via my link in the description, you can use that promo code for those free weapons, but like I also said, they are going to be on a limited timer and the code won't work forever, so if you want to get them, you need to download the game now. With all that said, thank you so much for watching. Your support on these sorts of videos mean the world to me, and I hope that I can make more kind of mini reviews for games in future if you guys are interested. Thank you so much for being here one last time, and I'll see you in the next one.